Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for another episode of The Owl's Nest. As always, I'm your host, Robbie Landis, and along with me, Jake Lyon. We are both back from the Houston homestand weekend. Jake, how you doing, man? How was your trip back?
I'm doing just fine. Easy trip back. It was a great time in Houston. Really amazing energy from the fans there, so probably my favorite homestand so far, although I've only been to two, but still, it was really great.
Yeah, no, I think that they definitely did a great job of hosting. From what I've been hearing, both from some, Blizzard and League representative, it has definitely been one of the better ones. Today, we're going to talk about some of our takeaways from last week, the homestand and the games themselves, as well as talk about the new hero pools and what that meta might end up shaking out like. And of course, we're also going to preview the Washington homestand for you, going back to Washington already after just a week away. But to start with, Jake, there was a little bit of a surprise for you this weekend. The Houston Outlaws retired your jersey number for you, had a little ceremony for you. What was that like for you, being able to get back up there in front of the fans like that?
It was pretty exciting. Definitely unexpected for me. But it was a great gesture. And it was nice to, it was kind of surreal, I guess, to have the crowd cheering for me again, and kind of reminded me a lot of the good old times in the past few seasons. Although at the same time, I felt like I was happy to have the ceremony, but I also felt really good that I didn't have any regrets. I think if you're gonna have regrets for retiring from pro play, that's probably gonna be the moment. And I didn't really have any, so I just felt really happy and confident with my decision to switch to casting, and I felt like that was the right move for me in my career, in my life. So, it was nice to reaffirm that to myself.
All right, well, I think overall, I think all the fans had a blast as well. Definitely sitting up from where I was, there was a lot more Jake jerseys down on the floor than anything else. So, speaking of Houston, why don't we go ahead and start there then? Going into it, people were a little bit nervous for them, I think, given how their past few games have gone. They didn't want to obviously, go out of their homestand 0-2, and their first match was up against the London Spitfire, a rookie squad that has been looking better and better every time they take the stage. Now, they did end up pushing them to a Game 5, but ultimately, London did take it. What was it here, do you think, that made the difference, both for London being able to edge them out and for Houston to kind of finally step up and start showing us a little bit of what they're made of?
From my perspective, I felt that Houston didn't really play that well on the opening map on Busan. Had some good moments, but just overall the team play didn't look that good, honestly, and I was pretty worried, honestly, after Busan because it just felt like they were really getting off to a slow start. But then even in map 2, which they lost, then it really did feel like they were starting to build momentum. They played way better in map 2 than map 1. So I started to kind of think, this actually might be possible, but of course, down 2-0 is brutal, right? And I'm pretty sure this is the first reverse sweep of the season, so not reverse sweep, but one of the first time, maybe the second time or something that has been taken to map 5 from a down 2-0. So I was really impressed with Houston's ability to rally off the back of Blase, really turning it up on Temple of Anubis on the Doomfist. He just looks so good on that hero. And then it felt like Houston were able to kind of ride that Doomfist success. The takeover Anubis, Linkster comes back in and has a huge game on Junkertown, clutches it out, and they're able to get the win there. But from my perspective, map 5 was really just a strategic point where, the Spitfire started to anticipate the Doomfist. It started to become a little bit predictable. So going into that well stage, they, roll out Fire Mercy, which could be a real struggle against a team that fields a Mcree, but you come out Fire Mercy into Doomfist Sombra and you just have a huge edge, and it felt like they were able to carry that over and secure the series. But really impressively well played from Houston, because I totally agree. I think the Spitfire are a strong team, easily the middle of the pack, maybe a little bit better than that, with a lot of potential. So it was cool to see Houston play them so close, although obviously it sucks to have the heartbreaker.
Yeah, I think that was probably the biggest question mark that I had was on that map 3 on Ilios when they brought out the pharmacy. Eventually Blase did switch, but he switched to the Tracer instead of trying to counter the Pharah with the Mcree. Do you feel like maybe this was a weird sort of overcorrection where they felt like they haven't had much success on the Mcree the past 2 weeks, so they were afraid to try and give it a shot?
It could be. I think part of the equation is that Mcree doesn't fit so well within the dive comp, so if you're going to switch to Mcree, you might need to switch to Ryan. which in hindsight maybe would have been correct. I think there's definitely a strong argument to be made for that. But like, it's pretty hard to make those adaptations on the fly. And if you've already gone to mid on this dive strategy, from Blaze's perspective, the best pick he can make in a vacuum probably is Tracer. But the problem is just that, maybe the team needed to make an overall adjustment. And I'm sure it's a comp that they haven't seen at all in scrimmage, because probably no one's playing Pharah with how dominant Mcree and Diva are. So I think it was just a bit of the whole team wasn't ready for that team-wide adaptation.
But of course, the weekend wouldn't end in complete heartbreak. The next day, they did end up going up against Toronto Defiant, and this is when they finally brought home their first win. They definitely leaned into the dive comps with the Doomfist and the Sombra. Do you think that their success against London the day before that kind of gave them the confidence that they needed to really start playing their comfort picks instead of running that Mei Mcree that hasn't really been working out for them so far?
Well, we did see the Mei Mcree come out on quite a few stages where it's a little bit more dominant, but definitely Houston wants to play the Doom Sombra, and I think they took every opportunity. I think there was a great map pull as well versus Toronto that enabled them to play the Doom Sombra, a lot more often. So I think part of it is playing those comfort picks, playing to that new strategy, and I think part of it is that Toronto is a team that showed that they wanted to play the similar strategy. So I think from Houston's perspective, it's pretty low risk. They're confident that they're either going to play Doom Sombra into the Mcree that they feel confident on, or they're going to take a mirror match, which they also feel confident on. And to be honest, it was kind of a stomp after map 1. I mean, map 1 was really close. Toronto taking it in the end, but it was quite close. I think both rounds went to 99 or nearly. But the other 3 maps were just a stomp, really. There wasn't really any other close maps. So it was pretty sick to see Houston kind of really feeling the energy, feeling the momentum, and you could tell they were just really playing well off the back of that. Everybody looked so good. Dante coming out on his Sombra and having just a stunner performance. I mean, so many 5 or 6 man EMPs on Dorado, I couldn't count them anymore. So really great stuff from the whole squad, and it just felt like the momentum, the support from the fans, the hard work they've been putting in, it felt like that all came together in one series, right?
It's interesting that that's the point that you picked out, too, because down during the press conferences, Raucus had actually mentioned, someone had asked him, at what point did you feel the momentum turning? And he had also said map 1, which surprised a lot of people because they're like, that was the match you lost. And he had said it was, but we could tell based on what they were doing that they were into playing dive comps as well, and going into King's Row and the rest of the maps, those were all dive maps, and we knew that we had the better dive composition. And I think as those played out, you really saw that too, between Blaze and how surgical Dante was with the Sombra. I don't know that it was really going to end any other way.
Yeah, I mean, although I would say King's Row is still pretty standard meta map, but the rest of the maps definitely really turned it towards dive, and I definitely agree Houston had the way stronger dive strategy. Toronto looked good against some teams with the dive, but now I'm starting to wonder, was that really more of a function of those teams like Philly maybe just not being as practiced in the matchup, where a team like Houston that plays the comp themselves felt like they were just destroying in the mirror matchup. So maybe that's just something that they're a lot more dominant on, and I think I've heard the players say that it really suits their style more. A little bit more aggressive, more playmaking focused.
Well, and speaking of other teams too, and Toronto as well, we finally saw Atlanta make their debut, and they of course went up against Toronto the first day and delivered a full sweep to them. So my question to you is, I mean, Toronto did in week 1 defeat Paris, but now they seem to sort of be trending a little bit downwards. Was Atlanta just really dominant? Are they coming out really strong, or is Toronto maybe not the as strong of a team as what their roster might
Atlanta
suggest?
Really is so interesting in their debut weekend, just looking insanely sick against Toronto, but completely crumbling against Paris. I mean, Paris felt like they were in control of that series pretty much all series long. But what I will say for Atlanta against Toronto is it just felt like they outstratted the dive. Their comp completely slaughtered dive. They're running the Torb, the BAP with the double main tank. I think that comp is extremely hard to play dive into, just because there's so much shields and the Torb turret is constantly poking you that, for the dive comp, a lot of people think of dive as this all-in strategy. You're going to jump on their head and kill them, which is true, but that's only something that can happen after you've established an advantage by surrounding the enemy team. And the problem with, playing against Orisa, Ryan, and a Torb is you can surround the enemy team till you're blue in the face, but it's not actually going to result in an advantage because there's shields on both sides. So you're not charging those ultimates. You're not getting ahead in the poke game. And in fact, the team that's just sitting in the corner is beating you despite your surround. So I really felt like Atlanta just completely counter-stratted the dive from Toronto and just shut it down completely. And then against Paris in the traditional mirror matchup, pretty much all series long, Paris just had the edge. And there wasn't really much that Atlanta could do besides play the dominant meta because they haven't really shown that they want to be playing dive. So, respect to Paris, looking like a very dangerous team for the dominant strategy right now.
Yeah, so that was my next question then, was to talk about Paris. We've only seen them drop one match so far this season, and it was in week 1 against the Toronto Defiant, 3-1. A lot of people aren't really talking a whole lot about Paris up until this weekend. Do you think that they're going to be placing a little bit higher up in the standings than what people might have been anticipating at the beginning of the season?
After this week, they have to be, right? Like, just that win over Atlanta, the commanding presence there was just so strong. So I think everyone should be pricing Paris up. I want to see how they do. That's why, I'm super excited for next week because we get to see how they do against some of these more top teams. Like the teams really in that, tier 1 slot. And I think Paris is a team that absolutely could break into the tier 1, absolutely is a threat against those teams. And the question is, can they bring it together against the very best that the Overwatch League has to offer? I think those matches will be very, very close, regardless of who wins.
All right, yes, I'm also looking forward to them as well because Houston has another chance to prove themselves as one of the teams they'll be placing, of course, is Paris. Coming up next, we're going to talk about the hero pools and the bans that we have going into next week and what this could mean for some of these teams and the meta at large. Don't go anywhere.
What up, though? It's Norris Howard from CheckpointXP, and this is your Esports Quick Hit.
Out of the loop? Here's your CheckpointXP Esports Quick Hit. Quick Hit. Okay. Quick Hit.
As we look towards the weekend in the LCS, who knows what's going on? Because Cloud9 remains on the top of the pack at 12-0. FlyQuest is bringing up second place at 8-4, but after that, things get a little weird. Team Liquid jumped from 9th place to tie for 3rd after a 2-0 weekend. In fact, only one game separates 3rd place from 9th place. The good news is, that means every match this split is going to be important. The bad news is, it probably means North America is not very good. That's your Esports Quick Hit. For more, head on over to our website, checkpointxp.com.
Need to stay up to date. I need that.
Head to checkpointxp.com for the latest in esports and gaming news.
Hey, what's up? It's Weirdbeard, and this is your CSL Power Rankings for the week of March 2nd. Canadian schools have taken 4 ranks in the rankings: Toronto, British Columbia, Carleton, and Alberta. Current champions, the Rochester Institute of Technology, were defeated by forward champions UBC in the upper bracket for the round of 32. In the upper bracket for the round of 16, UBC was then beaten by Rutgers. 2nd and 3rd place last year, University of Illinois at Chicago and Stony Brook University, respectively, are still in the upper bracket. Currently, UIC is in the round of 8, and SBU is in the round of 16. Let's check out the rankings, as well as this funny moment from the Stony Brook versus Illinois at Chicago, when the Dire team doesn't realize they are taking Roshan, even though they're right next to the pit.
He 100% knows. He doesn't know.
He doesn't know.
He doesn't know. The arrow goes in. Now he knows.
No, he doesn't check.
He doesn't know. Ricky, he doesn't. They both have presence of the Dark Lord.
The slam.
Oh,
they actually
she has to die.
got
she
it.
has to.
Oh
Yes.
my.
In League of Legends, after the fall of Harrisburg and UBC, Columbia College claims the top spot in our power rankings. Will they fall like Harrisburg and British Columbia before them? Or do they have the strength to go all the way and win the playoffs? Time is the only thing that'll tell. Delaware managed to take down UBC in an exciting 2-1 series. Next up, they'll be facing either RIT or MSU, another tough challenger. UIC have taken down opponents such as Johns Hopkins and UC Berkeley. Their road doesn't get any easier, as they'll be up against USC or the University of Texas at Austin, but UIUC have proven themselves capable to overcome a challenge. Let's check out this week's brand new rankings with those new teams.
Absolutely beautiful there from Zera on Jarvan. He was able to get that double knockup forcing the summoners and straight into a lockdown with the Cataclysm. Nothing available for the side of ETS, and really you just got to keep commending him on that one, getting that additional turret platings for himself. You deserved it, buddy.
As always with CSGO, some matches remain unreported as of this ranking. Kansas State University takes the place of University of Washington after they fell 0-2 to University of Minnesota. Twin Cities University of British Columbia and Carleton University remain static on the ranking despite their losses due to record differences between their opponents. Let's find out those last power rankings for CSGO.
Up towards lane. It's going to be a difficult hold here. Zarba trying to muster something here. Destiny in the back of the site here. Destiny out of Mikosi. Good Smoke's got one. What? A second as well. He's won it for them. 6 bullets in the mag.
No
and he gets
way.
a triple Kosi. What is that? A push through the smoke is warranted.
That's it for this week's Power Rankings. You want to stay up to date on everything that's happening in the world of collegiate esports? Head on over to our website and stay in the loop at CheckpointXP.com.
Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for watching or listening if you happen to be downloading the podcast. Remember, if you want to be able to connect with us, let us know your thoughts on what we talk about here. Let us know if you think we're wrong and why. You can do that at CheckpointXP on Facebook and Twitter. You can also find me at Robbie_LandisCP, and of course, you can find Jake at JakeOW. So, as we wrapped up last week's matches, the Watchpoint guys did the hero pool draw. And first of all, going forward, I hope they continue to do the draw and don't just rely on the algorithm to do it, because that was just great content right there. But we finally have who our first hero bands are going to be. We have 1 tank, 2 DPS, and 1 support. And the way that these is decided is they take the heroes that have more than 10% playtime. Is it the past week or past 2 weeks, Jake?
I'm not sure what the cycling rate is of the hero pool. I mean, it's weird too, because I think this one might be all the time up until the first hero pool, but I think that will change when we get into like sequential different pools.
So yeah, from those that have at least 10% usage, they're thrown into a randomizer and pulled out to see who is going to be banned out for the next week. And for this first week of hero pools, we will be seeing no Reinhardt, no Mcree or Widowmaker, and no Moira. So Jake, just right off the top here, what do you think of these bans?
By far the most impactful hero rotation is going to be Reinhardt, just like by a huge margin. I think this hero is nearing 90% playtime or something. Just every single comp that is not dive is playing Reinhardt. And even a few comps that are trying to dive you might even think about playing a Reinhardt, like with the sim strats and whatnot. But yeah, this hero is so dominant right now. The change to the fact that he can't get knocked back almost at all is just a huge difference maker for the hero. He's very, very difficult to kite when he's got the assistance of a Lucio behind him. So taking Reinhardt out is going to have a massive impact on the metagame. You'd expect to see, personally, I'd expect to see some Orisa Diva, maybe even Orisa Sigma comps, although I don't expect to see too much Sigma. So mostly I think Orisa Diva will come back. But that comp is so defensively minded that I can't help but feel that you'll also see a lot of dive, especially for attackers. Mirroring the Orisa comp with an attacker is pretty risky, pretty difficult to do, just because Orisa is a naturally defensive hero. So I think what that does is it pushes the meta towards this, dive versus bunker sort of strategy there. And I think it could be really exciting, especially with the increased mobility from Diva. It's not a true bunker where you're just like AFK at the spot you're going to hold and you wait for the enemy to jump on you. But with Diva, you're going to have to keep some map control, keep challenging those key locations on the map. So it should be really exciting to watch, and it should open up a lot more individual playmaking, and that's really what Dive is known for. So I'm really excited for the meta going forward, especially taking Mcree and Widow out of the game. That further, I think, buffs the dive strategy. Widowmaker, not so much. Widowmaker's pretty vulnerable to dive, but Mcree, of course, being arguably one of the best DPS in the game at shutting down, definitely I would say the best at shutting down Pharah, but one of the best overall at shutting down dive. That flashbang, is a general counter to the mobility of so many of these dive heroes, like Doomfist in particular. So that's a huge change. But then again, if both teams are playing dive, maybe Doomfist is not as good again, or more of a defensive hero again, whereas attack, you might play the Genji or the Tracer Sombra. Yeah, if anything, I would say I think Sombra is probably going to be one of the best heroes this Sombra, and I think Mei will probably still see a lot of play time, but Sombra as well I think will be a really, really strong pick right now.
So you think even with the Orisa coming back in and obviously having her Fortify ability which nullifies the slowing effect to Mei's endothermic blaster, you think she'll still see some strong playtime?
Well, the reason you play Mei is not really for dealing with an Orisa. It's mostly for dealing with D.Va. Like the freeze is one of the only things in the game that is a strong counter to D.Va's mobility and can reliably set up finishing blows to take her out of the suit. And threaten her in such a way that she has to retreat instantly when you start getting on her. She can't stay in and trade HP with you, which is what D.Va wants to be doing against most DPS. So I think ultimately you're still going to see the Mei mostly because the Ice Wall is still just an insanely powerful ability. Like even though you fortify, you can still get Ice Walled off on Orisa and still get caught. But I don't expect to see Orisa even close to as dominant as Ryan has been in the past. I think Orisa will be, brought out in these defensive scenarios, but I think we'll see a ton of dive. I want to emphasize that. I think Orisa will be like something that the defenders might use, but I think I could easily imagine dive defense, dive attack on a lot of maps, like full mirror matches, which I think is such an exciting mirror to watch because it puts so much emphasis on the ability of the team to separate into individual units and work alone and win 1v1s, which is always intense, and also the team's ability to coalesce at that most important moment and strike as a unit. So it really puts coordination to the test, whereas in a deathball comp, you're often just staying together as 6 at all times. So it's relatively straightforward to work together. Whereas dive requires that you separate and then come back together. And that's a much more difficult test for a team. And I think we'll see maybe some different results in terms of the strength of these teams. Maybe some teams might be better or worse at that than they have been, even if they've been succeeding at this past meta.
So, and then obviously our support that's been banned out is Moira, who I think was just barely able to sneak into the hero pool and be eligible for the ban to begin with. We're probably not going to see a whole lot of change from the Ana Lucio going into these this next week.
I'd say see Ana Lucio, but also Ana Brig I think is perhaps even better with dive comp, just because Lucio requires you be close to him, right? He's a hero who's more efficient the more heroes are in his circle. Whereas Brig obviously has a much larger range with her healing ability and her armor kits. And she's even more adept than Lucio at defending her support partner. So I actually expect to see the dive support meta be on a Brig rather than on a Lucio. But on Lucio could probably still see play. But with Orisa as well, I mean, Lucio is yet again less effective than he is with Ryan. So I really think Brig and Ana will be the dominant supports this patch.
All right, so then the last question I have for you knocking stuff over, that I have for you is for all of our pharmacy players out there with probably two of the strongest hit scans out of the game for this week, what do you think the chances are of seeing some more Pharah play coming into play?
I think definitely she'll be played more than she was played with Mcree and Widowmaker in the pool, right? Like it's a huge change, but as long as D.Va's in the pool, she's not going to be a dominant pick. Like just impossible. The D.Va in her current state just ruins Pharah's life. I mean, there's a few maps where the geometry is really favorable to Pharah and not favorable to D.Va, but there are a ton more maps where the skybox is just too low and D.Va can like solo kill your Mercy. So D.Va is just such a ridiculous hero encountering Pharah in pretty much every sense of the kits. Just the worst possible interactions for Pharah. And everything is good for D.Va in that regard. So I'd expect to see D.Va nearly at 100% playtime still. So Pharah, yes, playable, like dominating the metagame. No, I don't predict that.
All right, well, fair enough, guys. Up next, we're going to take a look at the matches that we have coming up at the Washington homestand and give you our match of the week. Don't go anywhere.
It's Women's History Month, so today we would like to ask the gamers of UNLV who their favorite female video game character is and why. Let's go. Joining me now is Lauren, so tell me, who is your favorite female video game character and why?
I'd have to say Katana from Mortal Kombat because she's just a badass in every way.
Probably would have to be Asuka from Tekken 7.
And why is that?
I don't know. She personally reminds me a lot of my mom, and my mom inspires me a lot to do a lot of things, and I just always look up to her, you know.
My favorite female video game character is Isabelle from Animal Crossing. She's a hard worker, she supports her people, and she supports the foreigner that comes into her town.
My favorite female video game character is Widowmaker from Overwatch because I just love her character design and I love her attitude. I kind of like the evilness to her. She's so cool to me, and I love the sniper too. So yeah.
Probably be June Kazama from Tekken 2 because she was a mom to one of the greatest fighting characters, and then she said bye. And no one knows why, and that's why they kept going on with Tekken. And she's a good mom.
So my favorite video game character, or female video game character, is actually Zelda from Super Smash Bros. Melee, and it's because she can change from like being this like princess character to like being a character where she can like fight for herself. She can be like chic, and so like I guess it's like a female video game character. It's like good to have characters that can not just be like Princess Peach where they're like, oh, I need to be saved all the time. Like they can fight for themselves, so that's pretty cool.
Happy Women's History Month.
Happy Women's History Month.
Happy Women's History Month. You're watching
CheckpointXP on campus.
You're watching CheckpointXP on campus.
You're watching CheckpointXP on campus.
Thanks to the students at UNLV for sharing your favorite female video game characters. On behalf of Checkpoint XP on campus, happy Women's History Month, everyone!
Hey, what's up? It's James.
And Robbie. Hey, and it's Weirdbeard.
And we're bringing you a brand new radio show called Checkpoint XP.
You don't have to be an expert, even though I am, and we're here to give you everything you need to know about the world of video games.
Interviews from the biggest professionals and your everyday gamers, we've got you covered at Checkpoint XP.
Whether you're a professional player or somebody who hasn't played in a while, we have something for everybody.
Hang out with us at Checkpoint XP every single week on your radio.
Find out where we're playing in your hometown at our website, checkpointxp.com.
So if you're looking to have some fun and talk about video games,
we got the rundowns for things that matter to you.
Checkpoint XP, your home for esports and gaming.
You got it that time.
Yes, nailed it.
Welcome back, everyone. Thanks again for joining us today for the Owl's Nest. Before we get into the matches and what to expect for this upcoming weekend, I want to remind you that if you want more content from us, you can head on over to checkpointxp.com. We have all types of content outside of even Overwatch. I host a podcast called The Other Identity with Ben Morris, formerly of Marvel. So make sure you go and check that out. And of course, if you want more Jake, because who doesn't want more Jake, make sure you go over and hit the follow button and maybe drop him a sub at twitch.tv/Jake_Overwatch. So, of course, we're heading back to Washington for another homestand. Apparently, they get almost 2 in a row, separated by the Houston homestand. And we're going to go ahead and start with our Match of the Week. Going down on day 2, the Paris Eternal, who so far have been showing to be a pretty adaptable team, are going to be going up against the undefeated Philadelphia Fusion. Jake, what are you expecting from this match, taking into consideration the changes that we have with the hero pools now?
I think the hero pools are going to be the huge X factor in this match. You know, even though in the past meta, though, I would say that Paris would be a team that could potentially upset one of these top teams like the Philadelphia Fusion. I think Paris is a team that wants to break into that tier 1 level of play. And Philly, they're defending a perfect record. I mean, last match they even fielded their second string roster, really, and they still looked amazing. So they're a team that's got to be very confident right now. And the question is, does that confidence turn to hubris, or is it exactly what they need to convert a win in the new meta with the hero pools? I think because of the hero pools coming in now, it's a big change for all these teams. So nobody knows exactly the way the meta will be. Nobody knows exactly what strategies will dominate one another. That requires a lot of prep and practice that won't exactly be there as we get into this homestand. So this homestand will be the test which team is the best at figuring out the meta, which team can discover the most effective strategy and execute it, based on their strengths to defeat the other team. I think this could be a very, very close series. Although I would give the edge to Philly Fusion just because I think they have the more adaptable and diverse skill set on their roster, as well as being undefeated. But I could totally imagine Paris playing this match quite close.
Now, last year, Carpe, who's obviously known for his hit scan heroes, had a little bit of a down year. It could have been from all the Zarya playing and not having enough fun on sort of his comfort picks. With 2 of his strong heroes now being banned out, how do you think that he's going to adapt to having to play, a non-Widow or Mcree?
Well, I agree. Those have been 2 of his best heroes, but I always think of Carpe as a player with a ton of hero diversity in terms of his skill set. He's got a great Tracer. He's got a great Genji. I don't think there will be much issues for Carpe, but we could also see a lineup without Carpe. I mean, as strange as that is to say, I think potentially if you're going to play like a Sombra Doom strategy, well, I mean, in hindsight, no, I think Carpe is still the team's best Tracer, so I think it's probably pretty unlikely that he'll come out.
Were you thinking we might see a Chipsa? Is that what you were thinking?
I think this is Chipsa's best chance by far to play in the Overwatch League because Mcree is banned. Ryan is banned. 2 heroes that are... Mcree is especially good against Doom. Ryan is pretty strongly defensible against Doom, although not a real threat, but still, those are just 2 heroes that Doom doesn't really like playing against, as well Moira being a support that can be hard for Doom to catch. There's all these, every change pretty much I think favors Doom. The only issue would be if the meta goes full dive, I think Doom might struggle against a double flanker strategy like Tracer Sombra. It can be really hard to challenge those DPS. But I think it's very possible, especially on certain maps where Doomfist has particularly favorable geometry. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Chipsa come in. So that could be exciting for fans of Chipsa, see him in the Overwatch League. But as well for Paris, XZ I think has a lot of versatility. He's looked really sharp on the Tracer in the moments that it gets to come out in the last meta. So I think they could be a great team too. Although I will say that Paris feels, maybe both of these teams have felt really confident and I don't want to say dependent, but just really confident in the Rhine strategies in the past. So this will be a big shakeup for both teams. And they could both expose new weaknesses or show new strengths. So I think that's the reason this is the match of the week. It could go either way.
Also, taking a look at Saturday, I think the match that I'm probably most excited for is the Paris-Houston one as well. What do you think the likelihood is that Houston's able to sort of ride this momentum that they've started and going into a weekend that should, as you said, favor a lot more dive? Do you think that they maybe have a little bit of an edge against Paris?
Well, I think dive kind of suits the style of Houston's players a little bit more than these team play focused Rhine comps. So I think overall the hero pool will benefit Houston, but I think Paris is a very, very strong team. And Houston, yeah, they got their first win, but the season has not been treating them well so far. So I think they've potentially started to turn around, but in order for there to be real momentum for the team, I think they're going to need to get these wins against a team like Paris. Who really is one of those upper middle teams. So I think this is kind of, in my mind, is the question: can Houston build the momentum? Can they take on a tougher opponent? Because in my mind, Paris is a stronger team than Toronto, despite losing to them in week 1. I would still look like the new performances that Paris have shown in the last few weeks have been really, really dominant. So I think this will be a tough game for Houston. Although I think you're right that because Houston has already started playing dive, they've already started adapting a little bit preemptively. A lot of the strategies that they're playing have not been affected at all by the hero pool rotation. So I think that does benefit them in the long run. More prep time.
I think for me, probably the only other match here that may have any sort of outcome that kind of goes beyond what we might expect here is the New York versus Washington map. Washington started out very strong, but after their last homestand, took the 0-2. With these changes and going up against Nixel, I mean, this could be a very big win for them if it's something that they can pull out of the bag. What do you think their chances are going into this?
I think this would be an absolutely massive win for Washington, and I think they're going to get stomped. So I don't think my prediction is super solid in favor of New York right now. Hadba has looked like one of the best divas in the league. The DPS line, I think, is so versatile for New York. I think they had some struggles against Philly in the more May Mcree meta with SBB and Who Are You coming together in the lineup. But imagine SBB and Who Are You playing against you in the dive meta. We get the Who Are You Genji, the SBB Tracer. That's a very different story.
Oh, please.
So and then you've got Nene and you've got Libero. So it's just, this team is really, really scary. I feel like a lot of people, myself included, was worried after the Philly match. It didn't seem like New York was in the same tier of team as Philly was, but I think with the roster adjustment made in the last week, they just wiped the floor with their opponents. So New York looking back in form, and I can't wait to see the Who Are You Genji. I don't think this is going to be a close one. Maybe Washington can prove me wrong. Maybe they can prove me wrong. But I expect to see a very, very aggressive and dominant New York on Sunday.
All right, well, sorry, Justice fans. Jake has spoken. But that's all the time that we have for today, guys. We thank you for joining us. Remember to connect with us on social media. Once again, that's CheckpointXP on Twitter and Facebook. Make sure you head on over to CheckpointXP.com as well. Check out Jake at JakeOW on Twitter and Twitch.tv/Jake_OW over at Twitch, guys. Until next time, make sure to stay on that payload.